For the better part of 2 years now, I have been recommending the Mara Detron as being, quote, one of the most powerful secondary weapons in Warframe, unquote. But times change, and recently we got a whole bunch of status mechanic changes. So the question is now, how did the Mara Detron fare with all of these changes? Is it still one of the best secondary weapons in Warframe? Hey guys, welcome back. As always, my name is Leyzar, and today we're going to be diving deeper into this secondary weapon. As per the usual, I'm going to have a cheapo build. Something affordable that most players will be able to build, but of course we also got a quote-unquote endgame setup with a Riven. That said though, please keep in mind that my builds and guides usually take a new player-friendly approach. I like to take my time and explain a lot of the aspects that veteran players should already be accustomed to. So in case you're a veteran, and you already know most of this stuff, please, bear with me. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the Mara Detron. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped. And for that, just a couple of free shots. Take one, my friends. Let's try to get this done in a single take with no cuts. Now, that normally doesn't happen in like 1% of the cases. So the Mara Detron is a shotgun. Well, it's a secondary shotgun that you get from Battleketeer the Void Trader. You can get to see this one once every couple of months or so. And in the past, my friends, this weapon was the go-to when it came to secondary weapons. It was in my top 10 most powerful secondary weapons. But nowadays, well, let's just see about that. First of all, it's a projectile-based weapon. As you can see, you do have projectiles, you do have travel time, but for the most part, the speed of these projectiles are rather quick. When it comes to accuracy, well, it's a shotgun, so look at this. 15 meters, most of the projectiles will be landing within the crosshairs, with some outside, so for the shotgun, it's actually not half bad. Oh, and it's also semi-automatic, and this would be full fire rate for the most part. Reload super quick. And that's pretty much it when it comes to functionality. Let's have a closer look at what we're dealing with. Mod capacity, 30 out of 30 as soon as you get the Mara Detron. But of course, you can jump into actions and plug in the Orokin Catalyst, which will double your mod capacity. I still recommend you building the Mara Detron, even though it's not as powerful as it used to be. It's still definitely quite worth the build and the forma. Speaking of forma, how many forma? Well, I would just put in 4 forma. Maximum, even 3. You can get away with 3 depending on the build that you choose by the end of the vid. The accuracy on this one is 33.3 with a critical chance of 8% and a critical multiplier of 1.5x. My friends, this is the weak point of the Mara Detron. Only 8% base crit chance with a 1.5x critical multiplier. Even if I manage to get that critical chance up with something like additive after effects such as Arcane Avenger or Kavat buff or Lord Harrow, it's still not worth it because of the very low critical multiplier. And you know why that's a super bummer when it comes to secondary weapons? Because some of the best prime mods are about critical chance and critical damage, so that kind of sucks. Fall off between 16 and 30 meters. Now, in the Weapon Excellence mod slot, you can plug in something like Lethal Momentum, which will increase the projectile flight speed by 40%, which will also increase the fall off. It's worth it from my point of view, not necessarily for more accuracy, but for the fact that the projectiles become borderline hit scan, so bear that one in mind. It is worth unlocking this one. Other options, you can go for Steady Hands if the recoil bothers you. It bothers me. And you can go with targeting subsystem with plus 30% accuracy when aiming if you went for something like Magnum Force. And I do recommend you go for Magnum Force. Fire rate of 3.33 with a magazine of 8, a multi-shot of 7 by default, so 7 pellets by default, which is beautiful. Alarming reload of 1 second, which is, honestly, it's fantastic. The usability on this one outside of the projectile flight speed, which again, can be fixed quite easily with, what was it? This one is absolutely great on the weapon. Riven disposition, 3 out of 5, right smack in the middle, and I got a decent Riven to show you just a tad later. Status per projectile, 13.7. My friends, you get it, right? So that is the status chance of a projectile. Okay, so all projectiles will have a 13.7% status chance without any mods and all whatnot. This weapon is an elemental damage weapon. The radiation on this one represents the damage. The 40 here represents the damage of a single pellet. But again, you fire 7. If you multiply 7 by 40, you're going to come up with 280. So again, you have an elemental combo by default. Which means what per se? Well, if you want to make the elemental combo, if you want to increase that radiation, it's not enough just to put electricity, for example. Okay? You gotta remake the elemental combo within the weapon. So electricity plus heat. That's the only way to increase said radiation. So bear that one in mind. Now let's build the weapon. Starting off with the mandatory mods, Hornet in the Strike, and then we're gonna go to multi-shoot with Battle Diffusion as well as Lethal Torrent. Both of these are mandatory from my point of view. Now there is something to be said about fire rate on semi-automatic weapons, but you can bind the fire trigger thingy to your mouse scroll wheel, and if you're on console, I don't know what you do if you're on console. Honestly, I don't know. So there's that. More damage. Yes, please, more damage. Mama with Magnum Force, 165% extra damage. The same as, well, actually not the same as Hornet Strike, but with minus 55% accuracy. It's still worth using Magnum Force on this one. It's a shotgun, okay? So I'm assuming you're going to be using it up close and personal. If you want to mitigate that accuracy loss, once again, you can go with targeting, subsystems, but I recommend Lethal Momentum on this weapon. What next? Well, what else next? Status. It's not like you have much of a choice, come on. The critical chance is absolute garbage in the critical multiplier as well, so let's go status, mama. Plenty of status. Sure Shot has been buffed to 90% status chance. It should be on this weapon from my point of view. And now it all comes down to weapon elemental combos. And that's going to be applied depending on your very own circumstances. But it's a well-known fact that right now Viral is basically the best. And you know what? Yeah, it's the best. So let's make some viral on the weapon with Pistol, and 6060 Toxin mod. You can get this one from Corrupted Vor in the Void. If not from the trade chat, my friends, 10 plat. No more than 10 plat. Don't pay more than 10 plat for it. And the 6060 Cold mod, you get this one by doing spy missions. And this one is also 5 to 10 plat. Whoop-de-doo, viral on the weapon, but I still have one more mod slot left. My recommendation, you can tend to some of the usability issues on the weapon. You can increase your magazine capacity, for example, Ice Storm, right? More viral on the weapon and a bigger magazine to 11, which is fantastic. But what I would do is add one more element to the weapon, one more 6060 mod, and of course we're gonna go with the most powerful single element right now in Warframe, Scorch 6060 heat mod. You can get this one from doing spy missions, again from the trade chat, 5 to 10 plat. I would go for the 6060 mod for the status chance instead of the prime mod, but that's just me. Now with heat on the weapon, I got more armor stripping potential. Again, heat right now in Warframe is the most powerful single element. It removes some of that armor, it stacks on itself, and at a certain point it actually gets to deal a decent amount of damage. We're gonna be testing on Corrupted Heavy Goons level 120. We got viral hit in test 1. Now what I want you guys to take a look at is how many shots it takes to kill off a level 120 Corrupted Heavy Goon, and I'm gonna go very slowly, shot by shot action, just to get consistency in the test and all whatnot. Then we're gonna be changing up the build. The point here is that it takes me 7 to 8 shots to kill one of these here targets with viral and heat, which, if I am to compare to what the Mara Detron used to be capable of doing, is a whole lot more weaker than before. Not only that, but these targets are a whole lot more weaker than before because they changed the scaling when it comes to the armor, so the effective hit points have gone down dramatically, so bear that one in mind. Now of course in normal average everyday missions you're not gonna go like shot by shot by shot. What you should be doing is doing this. But if you do that, your accuracy is all over the place, and of course you're not gonna get that headshot multiplier. Not that it's as important as on critical weapons, but a headshot is in 99.9% of the cases better than anything else, so bear that one in mind. So it took 7 to 8 shots to kill a level 120 Corrupted Heavy Gunner. Now, normally, this is the build you're going to be using in like 90% of the missions. Simply because viral in combination will do very well against most targets. Corrupted, infested, and so on and so forth. But if I was to cater the weapon against the Corrupted Heavy Goons, logic dictates that I build Corrosive on the weapon. So let's try and build Corrosive with heat instead, and let's see the differences. We're going to renounce Frostbite, we're going to go with electricity, and with a single mod such as Sue, we got Corrosive and heat on the weapon with the same viral. Corrosive heat with the same radiation on the weapon, the base radiation, which will be fantastically potent against alloy armor such as bombards. 1, 2, stand still. 3. No, I'm not gonna put them up into the air because then the passive kicks in from Boba. There you go, 7 shots. So basically it's kind of the same, isn't it? It takes from between 6 and 8 shots normally. It really depends on how lucky you are with RNGs. But as you can see, you can get a kill within 6 shots. The point is, it's really not that big of a difference. And let's be honest here, we are a bit lazy when it comes to changing out our builds. Or most players are, right? So you want a build that will do very well or as well as possible against multiple targets. So you don't have to change the build and play around with Bane mods or such nonsense. So to be honest, right now, Corrosive, even on a weapon such as the Mara Detron, is a little bit overtaken by viral and heat. So corrosive heat basically was just a tiny bit better than viral heat, and that's a bit disappointing to me, because wasn't the point to make more build diversity? Honestly, since the last mainline update, build diversity has actually gone down simply because viral is too strong. So there you go, and there's really not much else I can say. Honestly, the weapon is nowhere near what it used to be, and I don't particularly have a problem with that per se, but I do miss the build diversity on the weapon. Now you can replace Scorch with Auger Pact and stuff like that, but I recommend you keep the build as is. And again, the universal one, if you will, because now we even have that kind of builds, would be something like Su. We can talk about Rivens though. It's still got a Riven dispo of 3 out of 5. 1.0 I think it's the Riven disposition, so you can get decent Rivens for this weapon. I got a Satiato as a loaner from a friend. Thank you so much, mate, for loaning me this one. It's got multi-shot electricity and minus damage to Grenier. In our specific scenario, minus damage to Grenier will not affect me because my targets are classified as being corrupted. Okay, so bear that one in mind. This one is a corrosive heat combo as before, with a lot more corrosive because this Riven has electricity, so it washes into the corrosive. Lethal momentum as before, Magnum Force, Hornet Strike, Battle Diffusion, Lethal Torrent. One more time. Corrupted Heavy Goons level 120. As you saw before, it took me, what was it, 7 shots? Let's average out the 7 shots between the builds to kill off one of these targets. Now it's gonna take one. Oh, no big deal. But the second one and the third one. It's gonna take me 3 shots to kill a level 120 Corrupted Heavy Gunner. That's because I have a whole lot of corrosive, I have a lot more multi-shot, so I get a whole lot more procs faster. So that's why the first shot isn't that impactful. You see, the first shot applied 6 corrosive procs. The second shot, because the target didn't have as much armor anymore, is gonna do a lot more damage. And of course, the third one will be the quote-unquote fatality in our case. So there you go, my friends, that's performance with a Riven. Still worth getting, still worth building from my point of view, especially considering that Detron Rivens have gone down in price ever since the update, so there's that. There's still one more thing which we can do, bump up everything with Warframe buffs. Now, the Mara Detron can definitely be used with Lord Harrow, and Harrow will offer you the crit, but you still got a pretty garbo critical multiplier, so from my point of view, just forget about it and use it with Lady Mirage Prime. As for aura, you guys know this by now, against Grenier, use not Rifle Lamp. Sorry about that, not Rifle Lamp. Against Grenier, you should definitely use Corrosive Projection. I mean, it's not mandatory, you can use whatever the hell aura you want, it's fine. And yes, I promise I will aura Forma Mirage at a certain point. Arcane Rage will not work. That's for primary weapons. The equivalent for secondary weapons is called Arcane Precision. 300% damage to pistols for 18 seconds. This one should read secondary weapons. I guess it will take another year to change this. 100% chance on headshot. Arcane Avenger, in this case, well, to be honest, it doesn't really work all that well. Again, we're not playing into crit, so what we can go for is Arcane Awakening. Let me distill this thing. Okay, distill, then we're gonna go with like Su, and now we're gonna rank it up, and there you go. On rank 5, 60% chance for plus 100 damage to pistols for 24 seconds. You cannot, unfortunately, you cannot double stack these anymore, sadly. So, there you go. Awakening with precision. Damage upon more damage. Yay, build diversity. Thanks, D. Good job. Level 150 Corrupted Heavy Goons. Why the hell not? We're gonna unpause the AI so they can hit me and I can get me buffs. Now, of course, we're gonna be using Mirage's free ability for a fantastic damage increase, as well as her ever so lovely clones. There you go. We got Awakening up because we reloaded. Look at that. Of course, it's Mirage. What you expect? There's no crits here, my friends. There is just raw damage. The projectile flight speed working nicely, so even though not all my projectiles land on the target, the damage is absolutely devastating. So what do we do now with the Detron? We basically stack damage on top of damage with a little bit of status, or as much status as you probably can find. I wouldn't go into double elemental combos on the Detron. It's really gonna depend on your circumstances. Corrosive right now is not that strong, sadly, and that's a bit of a bummer. You saw the whatchamacallit, the radiation proc there. The Corrupted Heavy Gunner started attacking each other. So it's time to draw some conclusions. The Mara Detron for the longest time was probably one of the most powerful secondary weapon in Warframe. It was also rather cheap because you would get it from battle. It was a beloved weapon, and it did make my top 10 secondary weapons of last year. But today, my friends, it's nowhere near that top 10. Unfortunately, this weapon suffered a big nerf because of the changes to status chance, status mechanics, and to the elements in Warframe. I still think the weapon is worth building, I still think it's worth investing in, but it's definitely nowhere near what it used to be. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you got any sorts of feedback for me, I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below, if you guys want to suggest any particular type of content or have any feedback, I would definitely love to read it. You can also find me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. And if you love the content and you want to help me keep making this content, consider supporting via Patreon. Until next time, my friends, bye-bye.